Hi, I'm Thomas Hunt.
And I'm John Cena.
And this is the Bad News Network. This week, President Biden became the hat trick in U.S. presidents, eliminating the leadership garbage of the world by performing dead-of-night lethal knock-knock jokes on their homes. Omar Salah, a resident of nearby house, told Associated Press that he was asleep when his doors and windows started to rattle from the sound of low-flying aircraft at 1:10 a.m. He ran open to the windows to see what was the matter with the lights off and saw 3 helicopters. He then heard a man speaking Arabic with an Iraqi or Saudi accent through a loudspeaker, urging women to surrender or leave an area. This warning was stated for over 45 minutes before the gunfire erupted into the compound. The fireworks display that followed would continue for over 2 hours. There was at least one major explosion, and U.S. officials said that one of the helicopters in the raid suffered a maintenance issue and had to be blown up on the ground, as it seems to typically be the case with most Black Op raids. Weird. Anyways, when the dust finally settled, 13 people had been killed, including Abu Ibrahim, whatever his name is, who blew himself up like the coward he is using a suicide vest, bringing a whole new meaning to bringing down the house. Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby said that there were no U.S. casualties. I would just like to say that with all of the divisive and unreliable contingencies that have been going along for most of us Americans in our day-to-day squabbles here recently, it's good to know that regardless of president, we don't waver in kicking ass and taking names when it comes to pieces of filth like ISIS leadership. Here's to waiting to see what brave son of a decides he would like to take up the crown for the most risky management position ever.
Who doesn't love dinner and a show? Getting a nice meal with your family while getting some light entertainment while you eat doesn't sound bad at all. But when the show devolves into a 40-person brawl in which you might be actually involved in, the situation might feel a little more tense. This is exactly what happened at a Golden Corral in Pennsylvania. And surprise, for the first time in 2 years, it wasn't about anyone wearing or not wearing a mask. After a line formed at the steak portion of the buffet, customers were told that they were out of steak, which clearly made people emotional, and the scene quickly descended into madness. What was once a peaceful dining experience quickly became something closer to a WWE Royal Rumble, with a new participant entering every 30 seconds with a new theme song. It was very possible there was a bald dude in the corner smashing beers before suplexing a couple people through tables. Pay-per-view fights generally cost between $60 and $70. But for tonight, you can get $24.99 to have an all-you-can-eat buffet, except for steak, and watch 40 people throw haymakers and sling toddler booster seats at each other. That sounds like a deal to me. Also, is Golden Corral steak really worth fighting over? Have you had Ruth Chris steak? Golden Corral steak is about on par as the bullshit Salisbury steak we were served in middle school. If you didn't get steak there, there's about 70 other options of food to eat, 3 of which come drizzling out of a fountain. Pick your battles, people. The brawl was all captured on video and has made its way through all of social media, so if you haven't seen it yet, I definitely recommend you go check it out. It is better than any Jake Paul fight, and it's free. By the time police arrived on the scene, the majority of the people involved in the fight had left. Reports say that no one was seriously injured during the fight, but Golden Corral employees are now being asked to wear referee gear and carry around whistles to make sure the fights are fair. Since no one was left at the end of the battle, unfortunately, no one claimed the Golden Corral World Heavyweight Championship. This weekend, catch me by the chocolate fountain. I'll be the guy gripping a metal folding chair and dropping people left and right.
When the going gets serious, you call on your friends. That's exactly what Putin is up to. This week, amid rising tensions, the leader of all caviar and terrible car manufacturers called upon the old communist pal Xi Jinping. Putin went to visit Ping as he was staging the most obsessive, compulsive, cyber-monitoring, creepy Olympics to date. Once the meeting had concluded, they came to the announcement that they hoped NATO would come to its senses and stop pushing its agenda farther into countries in the long-term future. They also came up with a 30-year oil deal between the two countries. Putin is among a small group of world leaders to attend the Games, with Western governments, including the United States, Britain, and Australia, having declared a diplomatic boycott over China's human rights record. Other leaders have turned down invitations, citing Beijing's stringent COVID-19 controls and strange midnight rectal exams. This marked a further step in what has become an increasingly close partnership between Beijing and Moscow as relations with the West deteriorate for both. Xi stressed that in the face of the profound and complex changes in the international situation, China and Russia are committed to deepening back-to-back strategic coordination and upholding international fairness and justice side by side. Back on the front lines, there is a continued buildup of troops in the Ukraine border, specifically this week in Belarus. This is strategically worrying because now it means Russia is amassing troops not only on the country's northern flank, but also within extremely close striking distance of the capital itself. One European diplomat called the massing of forces a big worry, noting that this would be the missing piece that Moscow would need to launch a quick attack on the Ukrainian capital of Kiev, which is less than 2 hours from the southernmost border of Belarus.
This week, the Biden administration signed a bill to honor the soldiers of a top-secret World War II military unit known as the Ghost Army. The Ghost Army will be awarded the Congressional Gold Medal more than 75 years after their service. The Ghost Army, officially known as the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, was an 1,100-man unit that was given the unique mission of impersonating Allied troops in order to deceive the enemy. The visual deception arm of the Ghost Army was the 603rd Camouflage Engineers, which had the job of using inflatable tanks, jeeps, and even airplanes that they blew up with air compressors. They were able to create dummy airfields, motor pools, and even troop military camps, complete with clothes hung on clotheslines within hours. Along with visual deception, the unit also practiced audio deception through sonic and radio techniques. The unit recorded sounds of armored and infantry units, turned them into sound effects that were played over powerful amplifiers that could be heard over 15 miles away. They used spoof radio to create fake traffic nets and impersonated radio operators to stop the enemy from detecting real audio transmissions. Rick Meyer of the Ghost Army Legacy Project has worked for over 6 years to get recognition for the unit and to have a bill passed in the name of the Ghost Army. Their legacy will now be preserved, and their efforts to thwart the Axis powers during World War II will not soon be forgotten.
You know what they say, folks, when there's blood in the streets, there is money to be made. In this case, we refer to the pandemic. The cash grabbers? Nurses. 2 nurses in New York's Long Island are being charged with forging COVID-19 vaccination cards and entering the fake jabs into the state's database. Julie De Viono, the owner and operator of Wild Child Pediatric Healthcare in Amityville, and her employee, Marissa Uraro, are each being charged with 1 count of forgery in the 2nd degree. The pair allegedly forged vaccination cards, charging adults $220 apiece and $85 per child for a fake record that would land in the New York State Immunization Information System database. During a search of DeVono's home, officials said officers seized roughly $900,000. They also allegedly found a ledger documenting the profits from the scheme in excess of $1.5 million. That's a lot of profit for pretending to do something for someone. Despite the arrest of these 2 individuals, I have a feeling this is the tip of the iceberg, and others have profited off of similar schemes and just haven't been caught. Though illegal and wrong, this crime, like many crimes, comes out of necessity. It's interesting how hard it is to get people to step in line when you tell them what to do with little regard of their misinformed input. Call them crazy, but this form of practical protest reads like a $1.5 million go f yourself directed at the political elite running the state.
In case you haven't heard what's going on in the Great White North, the land beyond the wall, also known as America's Hat, aka Canada, there is currently a huge protest being conducted by tens of thousands of Canucks over the current restrictions and mandates put in place by Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. The current protest comes after what is being called the Freedom Convoy, which was a massive group of truckers that set out last week from western British Columbia and ascended upon Parliament Hill. The convoy started arriving in Ottawa last Friday to protest a federal government vaccine requirement for cross-border truckers implemented on January 15th. Canada is requiring truck drivers who are traveling between borders to be fully vaccinated or spend 2 weeks in quarantine upon returning to Canada. The Freedom Convoy, which consists of large commercial 18-wheelers and regular jacked-up pickup trucks, are blocking the streets of Ottawa and consistently revving their engines and blaring their horns in protest of these restrictions. During the protest, national monuments were defaced and demonstrators showed intimidating actions toward police, which for Canada is slightly raising their voice and, shaking their fist in the air while simultaneously apologizing for it. Local citizens and business owners have complained about the continuous noise and the disruption of traffic, which the truckers have apologized for, but are saying this is a necessary step to lifting the restrictions that have been placed on them. Law enforcement agents from Canada have made progress in negotiations with the convoy, which have recently moved a part of the blockade near the US-Canadian border and is letting traffic through. Travelers have been told to expect much longer delays, and many have been escorted through the blockade by law enforcement. A GoFundMe page was set up to help the truckers that was closing in on $10 million worth of donations until it was suspended and is currently under review. In the terms and agreements for GoFundMe, it stated that a user cannot use the funds to reflect or promote violence. Since the truckers were protesting peacefully, even if they were being loud and blocking traffic, their intentions were never to cause harm, so technically they're still within their rights to receive these donations. A large portion of the truckers have gone on their way, with about 200 trucks still remaining. Justin Trudeau and his family have been moved to a secret location in case the situation were to escalate, which means they were put up in a super bougie mansion in the mountains somewhere, so it's more like a vacation than anything else.
And finally, in Florida Man news, a Florida man and his grandson went scrap metal fishing only to uncover an excellent reward of violence and destruction. Dwayne Smith and his 11-year-old grandson, Alan Caldwalder, were just outside of Miami suburbs when they decided to drop their powerful magnets attached to ropes into the river to see what they could fish up. Well, this time it was the big one. Two .50 caliber Barrett sniper rifles. Both rifles seem to have been at the bottom of the river for about a year and combined would fetch about 20 grand. Not a bad haul for a hobbyist pastime, if you ask me. That's like a reward you would expect to find in a Call of Duty loot box rather than under a bridge in Miami. Smith calls it beginner's luck, but said thanks to YouTube videos he's watched, he was prepared to find all sorts of things. The weapons were not loaded and no ammunition was found with them. Smith alerted the authorities and turned over the prize. The weapons were turned over to Miami-Dade police and will be sent to the forensics lab to be processed to see if there are any related crimes that have occurred in the Miami area that might be dealing with the 50 cows. We're going again next week, said Smith. We figure all the Florida men out there using medieval weapons and crimes, some of them are bound to end up in the rivers around here. And with that, I'm Thomas Hunt.
And I'm Alex Pokey.
And this is the Bad News Network. Our news is at least as bad as the news you're getting already, and for all of you that are braving this storm up in the north and across the country, stay warm, stay safe, and we hope to see you again. Also, be sure to use the code BNN at rangerup.com for 25% off your order, and visit Nick and Matt's OnlyFans channel at Nick and Matt, where they rarely do anything. Catch you later. All right.